Good morning. Welcome to Breakfast with the Bishop. This is Bishop Gary. Once again, I'm talking about the rainbow, God's covenant promise to man and how it works. Now, Solomon, let me read you the scripture in Psalms 127. This is a song of Solomon. It's a song by degrees. In other words, in Hebrew being a picture language, you see a picture, and then you interpret it. We would call it in the English language semantics, different ways of looking at a picture. What do you see when you look at a picture? Some people see the good in a person, some the bad. Some people notice oddities or eccentricities. Some don't see those things. Some people, and you, in a court of law, they'll have 10 witnesses, each one saw it a little differently. So everything is done in our life by degrees. It's frustrating, isn't it? But that's the wonder and the beauty that God made of us. But he says here in verse 127, Psalms 127, except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman wakes but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep. That's a whole different subject, but listen to this now. Lo, children are a heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hand of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that has this quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed. Then he writes in the next one, blessed is everyone that fears the Lord, that walks in his ways. Thou shalt eat the labor of thine hands. Happy shalt thou be, and it shall be well with thee. Thy wife shall be as a fruitful vine. I want you to get that word vine by the sides of the house. Thy children like olive plants round about the table. Behold, that thus shall the man be blessed that fears the Lord. The Lord shall bless thee out of Zion, and thou shalt see the good of Jerusalem all the days of thy life. Yes, you shall see the children's children, and peace upon Israel. There's so much in there, I can't possibly get to all of it. But I want to go back to the words there where you see the woman is typed as the vine. And he says our arrows in 27 and 4, as arrows are in the hand of a mighty man. And when you look at the hieroglyphic or the pictograph, the Hebrew being a picture language, they didn't write it like they did for hundreds and thousands of years. They wrote it, or they didn't write it, they wrote it in a cuneiform. There was a picture there of arrows in the hand of an archer, and it's called a mighty man because he was a warrior. He was and he types today as the husband. The husband is the one with the bow. Now the arrows fit in. Blessed is the man who has a quiver full of arrows, and he says that. Happy is the man that has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. And all of these things are guideposts of pictures to show you how this thing works. Now, in Genesis, God made a covenant with Noah. And someone asked me on tour, they said, well, Brother Gary, how does it work? Well, one way it works is that in the practicality of this, you see a picture of an archer, and he's got a bow. And then you see in the next song, you see the picture of a woman who's called a wife in the Hebrew. It's by interpretation, by the way. And it's not necessarily a wife, but it's by that is what we say that picture of the vine represents. It represents a woman, just for clarity. But it's not just a woman, it's a married woman, it's a wife, because it talks about children. You have to kind of just, I didn't translate this book, I'm trying to translate the translators. And when you see this, then you see that the metaphor is the woman is the vine and the man is the bow. Now, when the two come together in marriage, and today marriage isn't popular, today children aren't popular, today abortion is the thing, and all of that nonsense, but the scriptures are going to be the scriptures a million years from now. And the truth is going to be the same way, no matter whether you like it or not. I can sit here and say, well, you didn't do what you want to do with it. But when that bow stands up, you got to have a hardwood tree for a bow. If you make a pine bow, and I did, it'll break. Right when I wanted to shoot a nice buck, it broke. But you make a bow out of a hardwood. Hello, young man. and you process that bow. Hello, young man. And that bow has to be treated, tested, tried. Hello, young man. And then it stands straight and tall. It will not break. It's been tested. But it's useless without a string. Now, the vine that he's speaking of over here is the woman. But in the natural or the literal application of the vine there, it's probably, again, there's no way to prove it, but it's probably a grapevine that can be intertwined and wound and with water and made it strong, like we would call a rope. And another scripture, a three-stranded cord. It's not easily broken. So the grapevine, stripped off of the leaves and treated and tested, hello woman, and made into something different than what you really are. And I'm not talking about gay translations or lesbians. I'm talking about a girl going from girlhood, puberty to womanhood. She's made different than what she first started out to be. And woven together with as fabric. And then the vine is presented to the bow. Now, you that are having trouble in your marriage, I'm still talking about a bow and God's covenant. The archer, the bow has to bend, or you can't get any arrows. The vine has to stretch, so you can't get any arrows. In order to be a union in marriage between man and wife, you have to stretch both polarities. The bow has to bend, the man, I have to give to grace, period. I have to bend. No matter how rigid I may be in my belief, in my raising, in my self. In order to make a union of two, I have to bend. And believe me, she'll tell you all you have to do is ask her. She has to stretch. She just has to stretch. And then the bow has to be notched. Something has to be cut into it. Young men, you can't always have your way. You have to have some adjustments made. And then the bow is bent. There has to be an outside force bend it. There's God's covenant. It is God who brings the bow together. He bends the bow. He takes the vine. He stretches the vine. He connects them. And now we have a bow that will produce something. So then the arrows are the children. You say, well, how does that work? Well, today in modern society, it doesn't work very well because the kids just go off and do what they want to do. And they're liberally educated so that they don't have to obey mom and dad. And there's not much right and wrong left in our society. And so they're just pretty well groundless. But if you go back 100 years, the oldest son was responsible for everything. It's like the Hebrew child. The oldest girl was part of that family. She was responsible. She was as a second mother. And I'm going to run out of time, but the quiver of arrows, is the number of children. Back then, the more children that you had, and I know you can't support them today. Back then, the number of children that you had marked a treasure, marked your inheritance. Someone said, well, I want my inheritance. My inheritance, if you want to be scriptural, is in my two sons, Gary and Greg, and I'm very proud of them. We adopted a daughter, Nikki. She's part of my inheritance. I'm very proud of her. You say, well, my children aren't much. Hang on, the game ain't over. God's not done. God made a covenant. It's God who made the covenant, not me. It's me that produced part of the covenant relationship, and I'm sitting waiting for my inheritance. And it says here, if you allow the bow and the arrows to function right, they'll deal with your enemies. And it's a pattern and a picture of marriage. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the husband is sanctified through the wife through the husband. The children are sanctified through the wife. The children are sanctified through the husband. Marriage is sanctified. He talks all about the husband and wife relationship, and then he comes down and says, but I speak a mystery of Christ and the church. And there's your covenant relationship that God, who is the archer, the bowman, the church, who is the vine, what are we to produce? Many, 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 many children. I've got to go for today. Blessed, blessed, blessed be to all of you out there. This is the second one. At a later date, I'll try to do the one over in Revelation 4, where there's a rainbow around the throne. But right now, I'm out of time. I'm out of anointing. I'm out of everything. And I want to just say, God bless. Till next time, Bishop Gary, we love you.